I have just spent the last couple of hours walking through the bush with Martin, and Martin's been telling me about the project on how him and his team and there's a bunch of people, as I understand it, get together and for no financial gain of their own, but basically get out there and put their lives on the line for endangered species. Now, once again, the rhino is the topic of the month, right? A couple of years ago, we used to go back and it was all about the elephants and so on and so forth. But I grew up in the bush. You grew up in the bush. It's not just about elephants and rhinos. There's a whole bunch. So, Martin, I'd like to take the opportunity, or you take the opportunity and discuss it and tell us what this is about.
Sean, again, a wonderful privilege having been out in the bush earlier and just, as you said, looking at the telltale signs,
Yeah.
And how the ecosystem fits together. And really, that is our natural heritage. As you've said, yes, elephants, rhinos, obviously in the press, but we face, for me, a greater challenge. And that is, if we don't protect the land that has that ecosystem, we lose what we call in the industry key species.
Yeah.
So to put it into context for your listeners and your viewers, we look at, first is obviously drug trafficking, which is a scourge of the planet. We have human trafficking, which is even more scary.
Yes.
And number 3 on that list has now become wildlife trafficking. So it doesn't discriminate between rhinos, elephants, pangolins, hornbills, giraffe, absolutely. And I think if we look at the fathers of conservation, Dr. Ian Player, an incredible man in terms of a visionary who saved the species we have in southern Africa, the black rhino.
Yeah.
And his whole ethos was, we're facing a different animal, which becomes, as you say, we have a historical narrative of medicinal usage based on cultural nuances and thousands of years.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing now since 2009 to 2017, so a relatively short period, has become a greed that is insatiable.
Yeah.
For giraffe tails, lion bones, as the tigers get diminished, what is the next biggest thing?
It's so sad.
It is.
I actually watched a documentary not too long ago on plant species and how we rely on plant species for the day-to-day, whether it be a Panadol or a painkiller of some sort, and we rely on plant species, and how we're discovering so many plant species every single day, but more than that is actually becoming extinct.
Yep.
Which is nuts, and that doesn't get any press.
No.
Because we look at a plant and we say, well, it's only a plant, you can grow it.
Sure.
It doesn't have feelings like a dolphin or a rhino or an elephant, and that touches our heartstrings.
Sure.
But nobody's going out there and saying wildebeest are getting extinct.
Sure.
Well, they're not, but for Southern Africa, it's nuts. Yes, we all see the migration through East Africa, Serengeti into the Maasai, but down here in this region, slowly but surely disappearing.
Absolutely, and
But
I think
it's never going to get the press of a dolphin.
No.
A dolphin's cute. I can kiss a dolphin. No one's going to run up to a wildebeest and say, hey, wildebeest.
No, but it's a little bit like that mentality of adopting a star.
Yeah.
I think from a custodian point of view, and this is where Nkombe Rhino, our impetus and our really the way of starting it was, we have to go back to almost the indigenous people's way.
Yes.
Is if we cannot be custodians of the land first, what happens to our heritage? And then that links very quickly into the tourism.
Yeah.
If our heritage is lost or threatened or extinct, thousands and thousands of people lose their livelihood.
Yeah.
And then the economy crashes.
Well, I think besides Australia and Namibia to a certain extent, and Botswana definitely, those are probably the only 3 countries I can think of. Okay. Then the Masai Mara and so on. Now I've opened it up. But
sure.
What Australia has done to move forward on the conservation and going back to the heritage of the natives, and what Namibia does with the natives over there, and how the San actually lived, and what they did is they used the land to be able to feed themselves and their families, and they moved around. But today's culture, people are just, we're useless really, because all we do is we just take and take and take and take and take and take. And if my geyser goes in my house, or my air conditioning, or whatever the case may be, oh, it's the end of the world. But yet we go into the bush and we leave our litter behind and so on, and we don't understand what the impact that it has. Because the circle of life, it might be an ant, it might be a grasshopper, it might be whatever. But if you're killing that off, or you're taking out too many trees, that grasshopper's not there, that's not moving, whatever, bees and pollen.
Sure.
You end up with rhinos not being able to eat what they can, or kudu not being able to browse. And you take the browsers out of the picture, or you take zebras and wildebeest out of the picture to keep the grass nice and short, the other, it's not going to work.
Absolutely agreed. And I think this is, and I know it's your heart's plea, and it is mine as well, is our kids are the future generation. And yes, from a technology point of view, they're way advanced to where you and I were.
Yeah.
But it's being able to really go back to the indigenous, where it's the Americas, the Europes, the Asias, the Africas. That was handed down as you were a custodian. Because your father and your mother, your grandparents, and I think what's happened in our society is we've become so insular and instant. And that oral tradition doesn't get passed. And if there's nothing that more than I can do, along with my partner in the business, is Joe Peterson. So as a professional sportsman, he really carries that flag into a niche realm. His heartbeat is there, but our whole idea was we need to be able to take this knowledge, because we're too far down the track as our generation. It's our children that will carry that flag, and with technology be able to change it and become aware of how do we conserve the land, which is right, like you say. Take a key species out of the equation, and your circle of life is finished.
So what makes Nkombe different to the rest of Save the Rhino, Save Endangered Species? What are you doing different? I want to get involved. So how do I get involved in this?
Sean, very easily. Joe and my impetus from the get-go was there are many facilities, there are many charities, there's many non-profit organizations worldwide that have stuck their hand up to try something and save in their small nuances with great effect. However, what we are seeing is a lot of the funding that comes in from all corners of the earth, as people's heartstrings, and rightly so, are pulled and tied as the voice for the animals. We looked at to say we love the natural heritage, we need to protect it. So Joe and I looked at a model to say, let's try something different to become more the dialogue, to be able to link organizations together. So as our non-profit, we do not take a salary, we don't have offices, there's no admin fees, and it's really because we're supporting a unit under the guidance of a great man in the region by the name of Tim Parker, who is a reserve manager, has grown up in the bush, and it really has a heartbeat. So we've taken 13 men, we have given them a military training, because since 2009 to 2017, unfortunately, we're fighting on the ground, and there are many other organizations, but we're starting to look at the syndicates that come in. It's $1 billion industry.
It's huge.
And Rhino is in the spotlight. What we fear, though, so going back to the three of drug trafficking, human trafficking, wildlife trafficking, poaching doesn't discriminate. Obviously, Rhino has, in terms of the monetary greed value, it's billions.
Well, cutting a rhino's horn off, or going and stealing a 13-year-old girl and putting into the drug trade or into the sex trade is, as far as I'm concerned, is exactly the same. Because the fact that the animals aren't human and there's no human rights for animals, there's animal rights, but I mean, it doesn't get that same kind of publicity.
It doesn't, and I think that's where Joe and I looked at how do we support a unit that has been successful over the last 5, 6, 7 years. Unfortunately, I can't give you statistics because that's privacy, but very successful in the mandate of how we support that. So you have 24/7 patrols, helicopter on foot, there's horseback if it needs to be, there's dogs in the mix. So we're looking at not only the rhinos, because that is obviously the threat, but unfortunately on the back of that trade, you get something which is very scary, which is called bushmeat. So
explain.
Bushmeat would basically be an antelope species that is taken for food.
So they're setting traps in the bush?
Absolutely. So you're setting snares and traps indiscriminately, and one poacher might set up to 30 traps over an area of 5.5 square miles. So coming back into private reserves or nature conservation areas, and you've seen this on the news, the Kruger National Park obviously is a hotspot at the moment. On the western boundary, many of the other reserves which we can't name, but using the snares to be able to take food home, to be able to feed a community. So what we've done at Nkombe Rhino is to say, how do we look at that conservation? Because now conservation becomes from a species to a community.
To a community,
And sustainability is key. So unfortunately, snares don't discriminate. So you might catch, for argument's sake, an African wild dog. You might snare a leopard. You might snare one of the most endangered...
Which they probably won't use because you're not going to eat a leopard.
Absolutely.
You're not going to eat a wild dog.
No. But it has financial value, like the pangolin, which is the most trafficked species on our continent, the scaly anteater, as most people will know it. So if you can snare that, that's a bonus. But in the meantime... and
you might have killed 3 or 4 trying to get to your end goal, which is...
And this, for us, the heartfelt drawstring, which is really, it is Joe and my plight, is if that person who is looking at that bushmeat gets that antelope, he might not check the other 30 snares.
So that just goes and rots out there. It is exceptionally sad. So I need to understand, what do I do? So I'm coming down from the States, wherever in the world, and I'm arriving over here. How do I assist you? What do I do to assist you? I mean, there's so many places I can just give cash to, but I physically want to get involved. What do I do?
Perfect. This is what we're very excited about at Nkombe Rhino. Is Joe and I have looked at a program called Saving the Endangered Species.
Okay.
So whether you're on safari with Martin Mayer Safaris, and I'm changing the hat, that is our sustainability, that's our project. It's a non-profit, it's registered. So you could donate. We don't take the cash. What we've seen is, unfortunately, as human greed expands, much of what is given in cash donations doesn't reach somebody on the ground. We're also very aware of donor fatigue. Because donor fatigue, you might not understand the emotion of the natural heritage. So what we've put together is a safari where you can add it to your normal travels, where you come and meet our rangers on the ground in private. You can also then track with them on foot, see how our rangers live and what they're protecting. And instead of taking cash donations, we will then give you a wish list. And it's basic commodities that you and I could buy in the store every day. So we're looking at boots, sleeping bags, budget for fuel.
While they're walking, we've got to make sure that these guys are happy, because if they're not happy on the ground, they could be going into the bush and they're not actually doing the patrol, because I'm stuck in the bush. As much as I love it, coming down on vacation, but if you had to live here, it's a hard life. Living off the bush, it's a hard life. So I might set up camp and then not go and check the surrounding area. If I had a nice pair of boots and a nice tent and a nice sleeping bag and a nice jacket to keep me warm in the winter, I'll be motivated to do that. So you're saying that help you out with that, and I meet the guys. would you be able to take me with so I can understand what these guys go through? Can I walk in the shoes of these guys?
You can, and we're groundbreaking. We're one of the first units to be able to offer this. Obviously, it is dependent on numbers. We can't take big groups.
No.
But
you've got to be stealth mode, because if you're going to be a walking safari, the poacher's going to see you a long time.
Sure.
And quite frankly, what you guys do, fantastic. I take my hat off, but I got a family. I don't want to put myself in danger, so I'd like to go out with you for a night, possibly 2 nights, go and understand how the tracking, understand how the guys work, so I can go back to my corporate life and say, guys, this is a cause we need to back.
Yeah.
We need to back this cause because these guys are out in the line of fire every single day, and it's physical line of fire.
Absolutely.
Trust me, it's AK-47s, it's warfare. What's happening all over the world, in the silly wars in the Middle East and the silly wars in Africa, has got nothing. These guys are out there, and there's no asking questions, there's no we're at war. The guys are walking and they get dropped without knowing. So yeah,
it is. And look, obviously safety is paramount, because as you say, it is war on the front line, and there are many brave men and women that have come into...
Well, the guy that's killing the rhino is getting, well, he's not getting all the millions of the rhino, right? So he's getting a portion of that. But let's say he's getting $1,000 a month. $1,000 a month is probably 10 times as much as you're paying the rangers to go out there and walk.
Absolutely.
So I'm going out there to protect the species. I'm getting 1/10 of the salary, and this guy's walking around. So he's got absolutely no fear.
Yeah.
He's got no fear.
Well, there's absolutely, that is the mandate. So the gentlemen that we support from Nkombe Rhino are passionate about, while you and I are talking, they're out patrolling.
Yeah.
So it's a 24/7, 2 weeks on, couple of days off.
Yeah.
But they run the risk of going back to where they live and being a target.
Oh, of course.
So it's where Nkombe Rhino has stepped in, and we have then networked with multiple partners to say, use our platform as a vehicle.
Yeah.
You'll get a tax certificate, you'll see what you've bought, rather than put the money into the bank account, which then suddenly disappears in the larger organizations. You will get a certificate, you'll get a photograph, you'll get a handwritten letter.
So basically, I'm sponsoring a ranger. You used the star thing earlier, right? I think it's the most stupid thing in the world where you buy a star and it's named after you. I'd rather then sponsor a ranger, make sure that he's kitted out, make sure him and his family are fed. Because if he's been well looked after, again, that flows into the community. Absolutely. Because he's still going to go and buy groceries from the local shop and so on and so forth, and it all spills. It's a circle of life in human beings side, right? So,
and it goes back again to the longevity of that man or woman becoming a pillar in the community. Yeah. The greater community, the education, and again, now we talk multi-generations.
Well, I'm a teenager now, I look up to this guy. So that's what I want to do. Because once this fades out, and I see with the millennials now, what do they call them? And these guys are all techno, going into the bushes. Oh my God, there's bugs and there's insects and so on and so forth. But if these people come up, we're not going to have any rangers that are going to look after. Yep. And we need to educate people that this is a career, this is something that you can do. And you know, why must I walk around when I can become a taxi driver? Sure. Or I can become a bus driver, or I can become a teacher, or I can become something like that and earn more money. We need to ensure that there is the next generation of youngsters coming through that understand the bush and understand where are the telltale signs, because most people walking here, it's grass and trees. Great, fantastic. But like I said in the earlier discussion that we had this earlier today, was there's a storybook. There's a storybook. And if these guys are going out, the guys that are trying to shoot the rhino, to find the rhino, they already read the storybook. Yeah. And if you don't understand the storybook, you might as well just go and stand on top of the mountain and say, hey, take me out. Because they're just as good. Yeah. They're tracking animals that are elusive. As big as a rhino is, it's incredibly elusive. Sure. So I plead with you guys, take your wallets out. The site is linked here. also in the description. Get on there, go and have a look. The YouTube channel is linked as well. There's a beautiful clip on what they do and how they do it. And get in touch with Martin or Joe, discuss it with them. I'm sure together as a community, we can raise enough funds to ensure that you don't have 13 people, that we have 300 people out there. Because what I like about this is I'm not giving you cash and I don't know where it goes. I would rather give you the ability to go and find another person out there, and I sponsor John, James, whatever his name is, and I kit him out with a tent, a jacket,
Absolutely.
whatever rifles cost, so on and so forth, and ensure that we now grow the amount of people that are out there, that you can assist the private and the national game parks. However, and I trust that you will go and do that, because if we can, as together as a community, can assist them to have more people out there, we've got to trust Martin and Joe to go to the game lodges and say, right, these are the people that actually do the job.
Absolutely.
Because money, I'm sick and tired of putting money into a place. It just disappears.
And I think, you know, that's our biggest impetus, is people donate with the best intent.
Yeah, of course.
And then the negative that you get because it's not being used of what you were told to do. So
I'm buying books for an orphanage. And you go to the orphanage, I've been there, seen that, got the t-shirt.
Yeah.
Sponsored an orphanage in Tanzania, got to the orphanage, and the additional classroom that was supposed to be built wasn't built. The books weren't there. Nothing was there. It looked exactly the same as 3 years before.
Absolutely.
So where did my money go? Oh no, it's been utilized for a good cause. No, but it wasn't utilized for the cause that I intended it to go.
Absolutely.
So other than me having then to take 30 days or 40 days out of my life and actually physically go and build an extra classroom, I don't have that time.
No.
So by giving you gear,
And then
you got gear.
I think it's exactly that. We all want to make a difference.
Yeah.
So as you said, this is growing the community. But there's a tangible ownership when you know, for that amount, I have bought 2 pairs of combat boots for 12 guys.
Yeah.
And that's not even your monthly grocery bill.
It's nowhere near.
So
Nowhere near. And especially if you're in the States. Yeah, I mean, combat boots in the States, cheap as chips. And it costs you DHL it or whatever the case may be. You know that it's arriving at the end spot. Well, obviously, please don't just go and buy any combat boots, because these guys are purpose built, right? So if you're here in Hoedspruit area and you hear the bush over here is exceptionally thick, but you get to Namibia or you go down to the Eastern Cape, it's a complete different bush. So please just speak to Martin first, and he can advise you on the gear that they need. Some places -2, -3, -10 degrees Celsius.
Absolutely.
And some places. So the tent, even the quality of the tent. Some you need heavy rain, some there's no rain, cold, hot. So yeah, don't just go and buy 10 pairs of boots and send it to him. Let's get the sizes first.
Absolutely.
And find out where he's going to be going through, right?
Joe and I will be happy. So you've seen the link, have a look.
Yeah.
But we're happy to help you to procure the gear for what you decide.
Yeah.
So it's in essence is, instead of taking your donation, we give you a wish list.
But because I go and buy the gear, and I know in South Africa and the States and Australia and most places, I think the UK as well, in Europe, because I'm buying it for a good cause and it's going to a charity, it's a tax write-off for me.
Sure.
So if I'm a business, I can write it off to tax. The same way that I donate money to an organization, I write that off to tax. The fact that I'm actually physically buying gear, that's also a tax write-off.
It is, because it becomes your corporate social interest, investment. So we have long-term partners that have decided, you know what, for these guys to operate in these harsh African conditions, you need gear that lasts.
Yeah.
But you also, things that we don't think about is the fuel budget for the patrol vehicles.
Yeah, we haven't even touched that.
So
vehicles, fuel, so it's not just boots. I mean,
No.
you need a vehicle for the guy to get in. Yes, they're walking,
Sure.
but you need to get them to their destination.
Absolutely.
And the reason why rhinos are being poached at the extent that they are right now is because this area is vast. The parks are, you don't just get there quite easily.
No.
Yes, we can do helicopters, so anybody got a helicopter, fine. But we got to use vehicles, so getting them in there, fuel is exceptionally expensive in Southern Africa.
Sure.
Vehicles are exceptionally expensive.
Yeah.
So you can't expect a guy to walk 30, 40 kilometers before he gets to his start of his patrol.
Sure. No, and this is it. It's the logistics is the area, the terrain. So as technology improves, and I really think across the continents, as the millennials, which you touched on, as they become more and more prominent in decision making, we need to be able to harness that brain think tank of technology. So there is so much for the future that we still don't know how, and we're talking small things, night vision cameras, night vision goggles.
Drones, come on guys, the States, UAE, drones are inexpensive compared to here in South Africa. I looked at the price of my Mavic Pro over here versus the price that you could pay for it in Dubai or in the States. It's almost triple. So imagine the guy having a Mavic Pro, it's so small, in his backpack. You're actually saving his life because he can get up and check it's got a 5 kilometer radius, so he can go up, fly it, and he's not walking into danger.
Sure.
And look, okay, the poachers are going to shoot him out of the sky, so we're going to have to replace them all the time, but rather the drone than the person that's actually trying to save.
And I think that's where, if we look at what is sustainable, what is conservation, as we move forward, there's ideas out there, and again, I come back to you and my children that will develop an app or an idea that we haven't thought about. But it's, if we don't, Joe and I always say we're custodians of hope. And the hope is that generation will be able to take the baton forward.
I wish you all the success with this.
Thank you.
I think this is a phenomenal cause. I think the fact that you're not taking any cash, which means there's no questions. Well, got a Nkombe hat, but I take my hat off to you.
Thank you.
Great job.
Absolutely. It's for the future. Huh?
It's all about the future. Click on his link, send him, well, don't send him money, give him a call, make sure that you donate on what they need. If we've got vehicles, drones, night vision cameras, you name it. You got surplus, please